and welcome to Share the Stories podcast. This is episode 7, and it's hard to believe, for me at least, that it's already episode 7. It's gone by super fast, but I guess that's what happens when you have fun. It's been a lot of fun. But speaking of fun, we have a super awesome guest on the show today. Her name is Leah Rosenfarb. Leah, you want to say hello?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited for you to share today. So I just want to introduce you a little bit, how I know you. So actually, Haley, my wife, was the first person to meet you of us two, and she developed a friendship even before we did. And I think you guys met at Greenbrier Church, in Virginia, and you guys were youth group leaders together there. But I think before that, you had an interesting story on how you even got to Virginia, right? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is one of those funny things that didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but then ended up like shifting the whole trajectory of my life. But I grew up in the Midwest, so I had lived in Indiana for 23 years and happened to have like a family friend connection who was going to Greenbrier Church at the time. And, just they saw that I had been in the Midwest for a long time and said, hey, do you want to come hang out with us for a year maybe or so, however long you want, come live with us, intern at our church. And I just thought, yeah, you know what? Why not change the scenery for just a little bit? Promised all my friends I'd be back and promised my parents I'd be back and have not moved back since. And
still
that was,
in Virginia.
Yeah, that was almost 7 years ago. So
yeah. So you're just like, hey, yeah, I need to change the scenery. I'm just gonna move.
I did.
Halfway across the United States. And
why not?
Yeah.
Your wife was actually the first friend that I made in Virginia. So I'm always thankful for Haley.
I did not know that.
Yes, she was like my first little bit of roots and somebody to really bring into my community when I was here. So I'm really, she's special to me. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are great friends and we're good friends too. And and so your guys' friendship developed.
It did.
And during this time, like you like you said, you just moved over to Virginia. Mm-hmm. You were volunteering there, seeing kind of where that led. And in the meantime, you're like, hey, I need a job. I need to make some money. And and I was like, I just opened a business and I really need some help. And I need somebody to help, run the office and do marketing and just admin stuff. And it just kind of all worked out like all at the same time. It was like God's perfect timing. You're like, totally. I need something. I was like, I need help. And boom, there you were at FFP. And so you were there for,
I think 2 years.
Help me remember, was it like,
I think 2
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2, yeah. And during that time, you did an amazing job. Everybody loved you. I loved having you there. And then super sad when you had to we're gonna get into the reason why you had to to leave. We won't get into that but anyways, like I loved our time together there and what you brought to FFP and how our friendship developed really from that and just over the years gotten to know you and your husband and just super grateful for our relationship and our friendship. And so before we get into your story, I wanted to ask you another question. And so I just had my first son, my only child so far. A week ago. I'm a new father now. It's a whole new world to me.
Fresh. You're fresh into the parent game. Yep.
It's crazy. Like, everybody is always like, tells you, oh, your world completely changes when you have a kid. And like, you just look at it from a different like lens. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can see that. And then it happened to me a week ago. And I was like, wow, this is real.
Yes.
And like your world really does change. There's no way to really describe it until I guess, you have a kid of your own, but it's just an incredible feeling. And so anyways, since I'm a new dad, a new parent, and you're a little bit more of a pro at this than me, I wanted to ask for a little bit of advice. So I want to know kind of one, like what has been the biggest challenge for you so far in being a parent? And then what has been the most rewarding thing for you so far?
There are so many things that I could say. Um, but I'll actually answer probably the biggest reward because it gives context to even like a lot of my story.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest reward is, so I have a daughter who's, just for anyone who doesn't know me, I have a daughter who's almost 17 months. And so I'm in, I don't know if I would say the pro levels of parenthood, but I'm definitely in the trenches getting a lot of experience. And definitely the biggest reward is that there is nothing like being your child's like ultimate safe person, and like comfort zone and safety zone. And, you know, it is like, there's just nothing like the relationship between a child and their parent. It is so it's hard to describe. Like you said, it's hard to really even conceptualize how everything's going to change. And then you're in it and you're like, whoa, everything changed. So, so with Lucy, my daughter, I mean, it's the biggest reward, like knowing that I'm her ultimate safety net. And when she needs something, when she's the most excited about something, when she's the most upset about something, she looks for my attention. And that's such a really beautiful thing. And with that, the biggest challenge is just because of how I am such a sounding board, I'm her home base, like I'm her example for pretty much everything. And so the development and growth that has already, even though she's only a year and a half, been required of me to be the type of parent that I want to be, because of my love for her, it's the most challenging part. It's beautiful, but it is the hardest thing I've ever done. So it's kind of a twofold thing. It's like, it's a really beautiful thing. There's not a whole lot of other things will do what being a parent will do in your life. So
that's awesome. I'm looking forward to, diving into these things that you're describing. As a parent, I can see what you're talking about, how amazing and challenging that is, both at the same time. And so I'm looking forward to getting to that stage of parenting. But for right now, my little baby boy, all he does is just eat, sleep, poop, and cry. So I guess I got it easy right now, other than lack of sleep. But
other than lack of sleep, that part is brutal. No, it's not easy. Nobody envies you.
All right, Leah. So I know you're a parent right now. You're a mom. You're doing some incredible things right now. But there's a lot of things in your life that's got you to the point you are now, that's led to where you are now. And so today I want to kind of dive into that, and I want you to share your story and how you got to where you are. And so I think that we were talking just a little bit beforehand, and you said you want to start right around your teen years, and that's where you think your story starts. So if you don't mind, kicking us off here.
Yeah, totally. I think just where I'm at with parenting and what is the most important to me in my life right now as I'm about to enter my 30s. Those high school years and the years leading up to this point give a lot of important context, even for me, as I search myself for what am I doing? It's so easy when you're a young parent and you're home during a pandemic with a toddler. To be like, what am I doing with my life? And so this conversation is actually, it's just even helping me remember the beautiful context that my story has developed in and moving forward. So I grew up in the Midwest, like we talked about, and I, right around high school age, I was a freshman in high school. There's a whole lot before then. I was an avid athlete, loved athletics, was really passionate about what I was doing, potentially even wanted to play long term. No clue if I had the skill to, but I definitely had the passion.
What sport were you playing?
I was playing softball. Was my real, I think, area of talent and skill that I was looking to pursue, at least at a college level. And also love volleyball. That's still something that I really love.
Right. So two sport athlete, volleyball and softball.
Yeah, volleyball and
Yeah.
softball, and
Awesome.
was really looking to pursue those long term. But during my off season, my travel volleyball season, I just started developing some weird symptoms that I knew as like a young athletic 15-year-old probably weren't very normal. Brought it to my parents after I had been noticing some things for a while that felt a little off. And, that started a really long journey of lots of doctor's appointments, lots of confusing results, and ultimately a diagnosis of an autoimmune disease. And which, brought just with the way that it worked out with me. This is not everybody's story with autoimmune stuff, but with the way it worked out with me, it brought the end to my athletic participation, in high school. Totally ended up plugging in. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you're 15 at this point.
Yeah.
You're two sport athlete looking to play in college, and then this kind of hits you, and I just can imagine how you could have felt. Like that was probably pretty crushing. Right? How did you feel about this?
It was totally devastating. I had been playing softball since I was 5 years old, and so for me, that was, 10 years. Volleyball came around a little later, but with softball, which was, my real passion and skill, after having played that for so long and that being like my number one fun activity, it's just, and as a 15-year-old, like your extracurriculars are probably what takes up most of your attention, most of your time. Like it's what you're doing. And so for those to come to an end without my permission was really, really challenging. And it felt like an identity crisis in high school. And it was rough. Yeah.
Yeah. I like how you said, it was nothing that you could do. It just kind of hit you. And at 15, that's really hard to handle. And I'm sure that, but that did set you up to learn a lot at an early age and propel you as you're moving forward. And so what kind of happened next?
Yeah. So we spent a long time doing doctor's appointments and not really seeing me get any better, which is, again, really confusing as a teenager. And, I'll just kind of fast forward because that's pretty much it. I did end up getting involved in other extracurriculars that I also ended up really loving. But I went to college, and at the time when I was in college, we were pursuing this kind of really intense alternative medicine strategy with really intense restrictions on what I could eat, lots and lots and lots of supplements, and trying to, maybe from a natural, more alternative path, try to get me to where my body was doing what it ideally should be doing when you're, in your young 20s. But just wasn't seeing results. And I did reach a point in college, which this is just an important part of my story, where I was pretty fed up and just thought, you know what? My parents are spending tons and tons of money on this, and it's not getting me anywhere. And I still feel sick anyway, and I want to eat Taco Bell. So I might as well stop doing all this stuff that I hate and start doing the things that all of my young friends are doing, and they're fine. So I don't know. So I totally, for my last year in college, just totally gave up on any strategy for seeing my body improve. I just thought, you know what, this is just me. This is my life. This is what, I guess let's just give into it. Maybe it won't be so bad. And I have regrets about that, which we can get to.
but I'm sure at this point, I mean, that's, probably about 6 years now that you had been, pursuing, this alternative medicine, this, very, I imagine, very strict adherence to things.
Yes.
And, in your teen years and early 20s, and you see all your friends, living life and eating Taco Bell and doing these things, that had to wear on you. And
it totally does.
And especially that you didn't see any results. I mean, I could see if you were experiencing these awesome breakthroughs that it would have kept you motivated to stay on track and a lot easier. But 6 years and you still haven't seen much progress. And so I can see how you're okay, that's enough. I need to live a little bit.
Yep.
But So what happened? Like, how did you feel? What kind of happened next after you decided to do that?
Oh, it was a mess. I mean, as you can imagine, I didn't, and just part of my story too is I just didn't have the the healthy habits, ever transferred to me
Mm,
that I have now that I've worked to develop since that time. But so, that foundation of like not having the healthy habits that I needed, and then also coming out of a really restrictive period.
yeah.
I did a lot of damage, thankfully temporary damage to my
Yeah.
system. So, I gained a lot of weight. I was exhausted. Obviously, my health issues were totally out of control. Um, and it is so funny because you do just kind of want, so much of my motivation was to want to be doing what my friends were doing
Yeah.
and have, the fun time my friends were having. But then the way I was treating my body was keeping
Hmm.
me from having any of the energy that I needed
Yeah.
to do what my friends were doing and to
Hmm.
do what I actually wanted to do, which is, this is where I was at when I actually moved to Virginia. And
Okay.
I remember that family I mentioned that I was living with, they joked with
Yeah.
me of like how many naps I had. I had to take naps all the time. I mean, I felt like I I did not feel like I lived in a 23-year-old's body.
Yeah.
It
Hmm.
was really sad.
Yeah. So you didn't see the results you want on the severe restriction. You went off and you enjoyed it for the short term, but then you
Yep.
realize it's like causing even more devastation, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so that kind of led you to do what? What happened next?
Well, I was living in Virginia, and as any 23-year-old who has just moved 1,000 miles away from all her friends
Yeah.
and family, doesn't have a new social circle yet, doesn't have, her
Yeah.
awesome new job at FFP yet, would do. I spent a lot of time on Facebook. And
Yeah.
I was on Facebook, and a friend of mine from college had shared that she was, down 20 pounds and was kind of sharing like some other testimonies of people who had done this health program that she had done.
Hmm.
And actually, one in particular caught my eye. She was just kind of sharing, what had inspired her to get started with this health program. And just in case anyone else out there was looking for it,
Yeah.
she shared this one testimony of like an 82-year-old woman who had totally like turned around her health with this health program and gotten off all these
That's awesome. Yeah.
medications and had all this increased energy. And it's funny, that's what connected with me, because at the time I was, taking 2 or 3 hour naps every day
Hmm.
and really struggling with energy levels, and, had been really familiar with the need to be on a lot of medications. And I thought, you know what? if an if an 82-year-old
Yeah.
woman can do this, because what I
Yeah.
was afraid of was something that was like totally unsustainable for where I was
Hmm.
at in my
Hmm.
health. I had tried some super intense, more intensive things like really like workouts, but for me, where I was at
Yeah.
with the fragility of my body, that
Yeah.
wasn't doable for me. So I thought, you know what? If this lady can do it, maybe let me
Hmm.
just see what this is all about and try it out. And you know what? Worst case is like I try it for a little while and shocker, I need to move on and it didn't work. But
Yeah.
thankfully, that was not the case.
So, so I imagine like you at this point, right, are pretty much like at the bottom of like your health journey, right? Like you've been diagnosed, several years ago, and you've tried multiple things, and you've tried not adhering to anything, and like nothing was working, and you're not feeling good, and so like so just seeing that like post like at when you're at your bottom, you're like, and it's kind of even more inspiring because like hey, this 82-year-old can, if she can do it, like I'm 20 something, like I can do this. And so when you're at your bottom like that, I feel like it's you're more receptive to reach to those things and take those big steps. And so that's kind of what
Totally.
you're doing right now. And so like this health program, so you gave it a try, and what kind of happened from there?
It was crazy. I mean, I remember talking to my friend and being like, if what you're telling me is this will help me not take a nap every day, then, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
And it really focuses on micro habits and, changing just the structure of your healthy habits. There's lots of tools involved. But, I won't get into all those nitty gritty details, but basically, within like a month, I committed to 30 days. I thought I can do this for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go all out and really do it because as you
Mm-hmm.
can imagine with my skepticism of past things that I had tried and treatments I had
Yeah.
tried, it's hard to like really put your hope in something, but I thought I'll give this 30 days. And so I did. And I think I was like, I mean, I definitely had increased energy within a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I was like no longer
Awesome.
taking naps.
Yeah.
I think that was the best part is that I mean, I did lose a lot of weight, which at the time I wasn't super attached to, but the more I got to a healthier weight and version of
Mm-hmm.
myself, the more I could realize how much that was actually benefiting me in my energy levels, in my joint pain that I experienced with this disease. And it was like, it was crazy. I felt for the first time like, oh my gosh, I think at that time it had been 8 years since I'd been diagnosed. And I
That's
thought,
all. Yeah.
I can't imagine, feeling like I did when I
Mm-hmm.
was in high school. And it was really transformative. It was really cool. I went on to lose about 45 pounds. And
Wow.
then that's when you and I met each other. Cause
Yeah.
then I was actually at a point where I loved being physically active in high school.
Yeah.
And so to realize that I had the limits to not be able to exercise as rigorously as I wanted to was really sad. So
Mm-hmm.
when I had lost a lot of weight, was actually at a point where I could do what I wanted to do. It was really exciting. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, how you and I connected.
Mm-hmm.
Because Haley actually had been one of my biggest cheerleaders during that time, which is so fun
Mm-hmm.
that she was a part of that.
Yeah. 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 And before we get to that, I did like what you said about, about the developing healthy habits. And like, so I
Mm-hmm.
feel for a lot of people, when you come off of a period of time, especially for a long period of time, like you were, where,
Yeah.
you're very restrictive
Yeah.
and you think it's like, it's pretty much like 100% or nothing, right? There's that
Mm-hmm.
all or nothing
Right.
mentality. And then to kind of lean into more like habit driven, like
Mm-hmm.
that had to be a challenge for you, like,
Yeah.
or there was something that was, super powerful for you that just made that switch flip. And can you talk a little bit more about kind of that transition and like how you kind
Yeah.
of dove into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the ways that this program really does assist people is like we want to give, I'll get into this later, but I also help people with this program now. And so
Yeah.
we want to give as many like tools as possible without having to help like make people come up with their own tools. So we give like a really easy to follow nutrition plan. Like we
Hmm.
really want to help people take the thinking out of it.
Yeah.
Because kind of, yeah, the more, I think something I've realized, even as this health journey has continued for me for a long time, I've since had a baby. And so
Yeah.
that wasn't my only, period of going through weight loss and nutritive eating and things. So
Yeah.
I think something that's so important for us to realize as human beings is that we have the coping mechanisms that we have for a reason. Like our
Hmm.
brain needs to cope with stress in certain ways. And so we develop all these things. We develop sleeping in past our alarm. We develop, watching a lot of TV. We develop drinking and eating, maybe high calorie foods that bring us a lot of comfort. And so to go into that and be like, well, I'm just going to change all of this just like
Yeah.
that. I'm going to take away all my brain's coping mechanisms
Yeah.
that is keeping me calm. And then we
Hmm.
wonder why, like, after 3 days of misery, as
Yeah.
soon as one thing goes wrong, we just throw the whole thing out. And
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
the strategy of, this health program that I use was like, hey, we're going to give you as much support as we can so that you don't have to think about quite as
Hmm.
much. Like the nutrition plan is very easy to follow and just a lot is provided for you. But we asked
Gotcha.
like, could you learn how to maybe track and measure and make some of your own decisions like just a few places, like one meal a day.
Mm.
Can you
Yeah.
measure and track, make your own choices do your own nutritive planning, 1 meal a day. Do you think you could start increasing your water a little bit? It's actually the slogan of the health program is, habit transformation, one habit at a time. And
yeah, I like that.
yeah, we really can't, it's like you're a runner, which is something I've never related personally, but so you as a marathon runner, if I were to be like, Michael, I want to become a marathon runner. So tomorrow I'm going to go out and run 10 miles when I've never run.
Like, that's not such a great idea.
I've never run more than 2 miles in my life.
Yeah.
And so, no wonder I would probably set out to run the 10 miles. I would torture myself through who knows how many I could actually make it through. And then I would never go back to trying it again.
Yeah.
But a better strategy would be, I'm going to actually go put on my tennis shoes and because I'm going to go get outside for just a little bit more than I do right now. And the strategy is really to pick a habit that you can work on. It's like, pick something that's so simple to do that you could do it even on a really, really tough day, which is why we provide so much of the nutritive eating portion for our clients, is because it's like, even on a really tough day when you've had a long day, maybe your schedule has been out of control, but you can eat the things that we're helping provide you with and plan 1 meal for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I love that, and I love the strategy behind it. And I think it's a super effective one, and obviously it's worked for you. It's worked for a lot of people, and like in your own journey. So it sounds like you had your hand held at the beginning, like right. You're like, hey, I don't have to think about this, and so somebody's like, I can make this work for you. Just start here, right, and then slowly over time. As you started to get in that routine, started to develop that habit, started to become more ordinary for you, then they pulled back a little bit and allowed you to do it a little bit on your own, and a little bit more and a little bit more, and over time, then you were able to like develop those habits on your own, and where you're walking tall by yourself, and then you can continue those, and they're sustainable long term, and I love that. So you were doing that. Going back to your story, and you were seeing really good progress, and you mentioned, about this time you were, your health was improving, your energy was improving, you were losing weight, and you were jumping into, more physical exercise, and that's kind of where your journey was at that point. So like, what kind of happened next?
It was just such an answered prayer, and such a, gosh, how many other people maybe out there are struggling with what I'm struggling with, or just their own version of what I'm struggling with, like needing something, needing a lifeline to see their health transformed. And so I started to, what we call pay it forward, which is I decided to start walking alongside some other people. Like I was walking along, or like my coach was walking alongside of me. And so, that friend that initially helped me get started, she was my health coach. And so I decided to get started as a coach and start assisting other people in my world to do what I was doing if this was something that was a good fit for them. And, that's been a huge blessing in and of itself. It's really fun. I still do assist people. There's been, over the last 6 years, like varying levels of how many people I'm assisting at once, and what that has looked like in my life. But that's been one of the fun things, is watching that one piece of my journey. That's actually, I started that even before I met my husband. So that one piece of my journey has, infiltrated all the different mountaintops and valleys and paths that the last 6 years have taken me on. But really, like, you and I were talking before, like really what health coaching did is it inspired a lot of personal development in me, because when you start to help other people find breakthrough, it requires and just will bring out in you a lot of the areas that you want to grow. And I don't know where I would be or what kind of person I would be to this day if it weren't for just the path that provided to wanting to seek out personal development.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, you saw this, huge transformation happen in your own life. And then you realize, hey, this was incredible for me and I want to help other people experience that same thing.
Yeah.
And so that kind of led you into coaching. And then through coaching, you're like, hey, if I have to lead people, like,
yes,
I need to, better myself so I can better lead other people. And this started your journey of personal development. And, I love that. For people that do coaching, I think this is a thing that is recognizable. Like once you start to help people, like it drives you to even be better yourself. And I love that.
Absolutely.
And so I want to hear more about that and where that kind of led you.
Yeah. Well, I was, thinking about this earlier and I was just laughing to myself because as I've looked back on the last 6 years, I thought, if I could describe personal development in a journey, it's like you
it's
have
like
your you have your like enlightenment moment when you realize how amazing the world of personal development is. You know what I mean? You're like, oh man, all those quotes that I'm always seeing, like, yes, totally those. And you read your first whoever your personal development person, you read your first John Maxwell book and you're like, everything he says is amazing. And like, I am going to be a leader. And so you get really fired up.
I've read a lot of John Maxwell books.
Yeah. You become kind of a guru. This is the journey. And then to actually become those things that you have learned about, that road is paved with challenges. Like that road, it's just like I could know everything there is to know about running a marathon, but until my feet actually hit the pavement and that endurance is actually worked out in my body, I'm not a marathon runner. And so I can read all the John Maxwell and, I'll just like name drop some of my favorites. John Maxwell, Mel Robbins, Brendan Burchard. I can read all of that. But until I actually experience the type of challenges where that character development needs, like, it requires that character development be worked out in me. Yeah. It's not going to happen. And so, then I feel like everyone who gets passionate about personal development kind of has this moment where you're like, wait a second. Yeah. This is not as fun or inspiring as I thought it would be. But luckily I had a lot of mentors along the way that were there. I think that's probably the key too, is you really do need personal mentors who have done what you're wanting to do. And so I thankfully...
You're hitting a lot of good stuff right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause you just for a second so we can talk about some of this. Okay. So, you mentioned that it's something I believe strongly in too, is that like, yes, like we should continue be seeking like knowledge and growth and through reading and through other resources and stuff. Yeah. But there has to be a period of time where we gain that, head knowledge and we have to like, put that on pause for just a second. Yes. And we have to step out and put our feet on the ground, like you're saying. And we have to go try to live that and get that experience and work through that so that it can stick. Because I feel like if we just read and gain this knowledge, we're like delaying it actually applying to our lives. Like, yes, we're getting smarter, but like it's not actually working out in our lives.
And it's more frustrating. Because then you're going, I don't get it. I know all this stuff. Yes. But why is this still so frustrating for me? And you're like, maybe what's the next book? Maybe it's in the next book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're always looking for what's the next answer instead of like going out there and trying to figure it out. And I love that. And, because we can all read the same thing, but we're going to apply it a little bit differently because everybody's lives are a little bit different. Yeah. And so so no one book is going to have, the answer. And so it's like taking these resources and then stepping out and figuring it out on your own. I think you hit that head on the head there. And we're going to, continue this conversation. So you're learning all these things. You're really diving in. You're like, I got to get my feet on the ground. And so where does that kind of lead you next?
That led me, so somewhere in there, infiltrated. I mean, it's been, 6 straight years of lots
Yeah.
of, I love personal development. It is just such a beautiful thing when someone's willing to, open their eyes to where they could grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because I will be honest that before I started coaching and was introduced to this world of personal development, I was raised with what they call in the personal development world a fixed mindset and a very, I don't know if it's like Midwest culture or maybe just the family I was raised in. All of our parents did the best they could. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things is that I was taught growing up is like, you are the way that you are. You're good at the things that you're good at. So just stick to those things and, try to avoid as many situations as possible where you're not good at the things that you're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
And, or just even lots of like, oh yeah, but that's something I've never been good at. And for somebody who was now leading other people, that wasn't going to fly because those people, really deserved the type of leader who could grow in, and really even for my own sake, like leading other people is more enjoyable
Yeah.
when you feel as though you are increasing and when you are increasing in your proficiency in it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes doing something they don't feel very good at. So,
For sure.
leading will be a lot more fun if you become a good leader.
Yeah.
And that road is tough, but it's got really great fruit at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've
So
been,
what are some of the things that you're doing at this point? So you said you were reading a lot. Like, what are some
yeah,
other things that you're doing, in personal development to help you become that type of leader?
yeah. Where I started when I was coaching and what was really fun about coaching for me in the beginning, or even just, my life was I've always been really sociable, always been very friendly, have really enjoyed talking with people, but I lacked a lot of the drive to execute a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things, like to take initiative in my own, in certain areas, like getting more organized and following up. Like when you're working with other people as a leader, it doesn't matter what field you're in, follow up and being able to circle back around with somebody on whether it's somebody that I'm already working with or even
Mm-hmm.
like as personal as like my husband about a previous conversation we've had. Those skills are really
Yeah.
important. Communication skills, they're really important.
Yeah.
I had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of great, like, being fun to talk to and
Yeah.
just friendly communication skills. But when it came to actually like having hard conversations, which when you're helping people through their health, you're going to be a part of a lot of serious conversations where they are working through stuff. And, to develop the skills to actually be able to coach them through those things instead of just be like, I know you can do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know, like it'll all work out.
Mm-hmm.
To develop that fortitude in myself was really important. And
Yeah.
and then honestly, when you're running your own business, you need to know how to keep track of things
Yeah.
and
For sure.
get a little organized and
Yeah.
get on a schedule. I was a very free spirit and I still
Mm-hmm.
really value that, but now I can really value what structure can offer. How much freedom you actually have if you're willing to submit yourself to a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of structure to get things done.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned follow up, and a little confession. That's like one of the things that I struggle with the most in coaching and leadership is
It's hard.
it is
It's
hard.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just for me it's like sometimes I feel like I'm like bugging the person.
Yeah.
I'm like I don't want to bug them, but no, it is
Yeah.
follow ups. They're extremely powerful,
Yeah.
and a lot of times most times, people are super appreciative of those. And, there's a lot of good things that, that happen, from that wouldn't have happened if you didn't reach out in the first place. And so
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, going off on a tangent here, but, I love that you said that and kind of working through those things that, developed organization skills that you're talking about, all these other different leadership skills. And so you're reading, were you going to like, a lot of people, in personal development go to like conferences or do workshops. Like, were you doing any type of that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. I just, was really diving into the world of personal development. And that's something that, our coaching, like the program that we work with when you become a coach, the personal development is really prioritized. So luckily a lot of that was even provided if I would just attend our coach trainings or our conferences. That really was like the main point, is to assist people to become better leaders, because that's just what you're doing when you're assisting other people in this area. And then I became a parent. So I did for quite a few years, but it has looked a little different since, having a little one at home. But that time of getting together with other people who are growing, and when travel was a little more common back then, was really, really fun. And there is nothing like immersing yourself into, I know, immersing yourself into a weekend that's just totally, totally focused on you and the areas that you want to grow, and having really brilliant minds and humble, amazing leaders come and pour into you is really special.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And leadership is a ongoing, process. Personal development is an ongoing process. Something that like, it's not like, oh, I spent a weekend, learning about it. Now I know everything there is to know about it.
Yes, exactly.
I did it for a year. I'm set. And like, no, it's a continual, lifelong journey. And so I love just hearing like the different ways that you've kind of dove into that, and that you're continuing to dive into. And then you mentioned that you became a parent. And that's like a little bit different of a leadership role, a little different than coaching. And so like, where did that kind of lead you? Like I want to know more about this.
Oh man. Yeah. Again, there's just so much you could say about being a parent. Health coaching was kind of a surprise, obviously, when I was going through everything in high school and college. If you would have told me, like, you're going to find breakthrough in your health and then help other people do it, I would have been like, wrong girl. You got the wrong girl. That is not me. Because I never saw it. So health coaching was a pleasant surprise. And the leadership that developed in me was a really cool, unexpected turn. But being a parent was something that I've always wanted to do. It really was like, it is the dream. And so that brought out, a lot of excitement, lots of unexpected challenges, because when you're a parent, it's like all this stuff that you've been reading about, learning about, developing in yourself over time. One of the differences with coaching is that I'm not coaching all the time. I'm not coaching 24/7. Lots of my clients and the people I work with they get health coach Leah, who can kind of compartmentalize maybe what's not going so hot that day. And I'm there to serve them for the time that we talk. So then to transition into parenting, when it's this totally different world where you're like, I'm a parent. I am never not going to be a parent again. So I'm a parent 24/7 now. And
I actually thought about that on my, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
On the way home from the hospital, I was like, it like really hit me. Like, I was like, I had him in the car seat and we're like driving away. I'm like, all right, this is real. Like,
this is it.
He's completely my responsibility now, for at least the next, 18, 20 years.
Totally.
He's going to be with me. And like, just like, it's like, boom, it was shattering.
You're never not a parent again.
Yeah.
And kind of like my husband and I have joked, when my daughter has gone through her developmental milestones, we're like, she's going to start walking and then it's over. Like, she's going to start talking and then we will never not know what she's thinking again.
Yeah.
So just, you look forward to these milestones and these things, and then you're like, whoa, literally can't go back from this, which is really cool. Sometimes we just need to be nudged right into that next transition. So, becoming a parent, I think one of the biggest differences that has been challenging, but also really beautiful, is that these moments of personal development and growing as a parent don't happen at conferences and, having this super inspirational moment or whatever it might be. They don't happen on a stage. They don't happen in these big mountaintop moments. They happen in the mundane, like every day. Everything about being a parent is just integrated into normal life, which has its really beautiful moments. It has its challenges. And it took me a little while to make the shift of actually that's okay, and it's a really good, it's a really okay thing for me to be having these personal development moments and moments of growth and breakthrough that are super mundane and actually may not even ever be seen by anybody else,
Yeah.
but they're happening. Um, you know, it's yeah, it's a really beautiful thing, and I think that a lot of us, especially moms, but dads too, don't give ourselves credit for because it's happening on the small scale in the middle of dirty dishes, in the middle of changing a diaper. But the opportunity is there if you're willing to be open to it.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. I'm over here like trying to scribble a note right now. Yeah, it's only been a week for me, but you know, I've already like in that week, it's like I've already seen growth happening, you know, that wouldn't have happened otherwise if he wasn't here with me.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's something that just kind of like when it's your child and you're responsible for them and like they're completely like helpless and like they're dependent upon you of learning things. Like you're in that stage right now. I'll get there eventually. Like it's a pretty big thing. And like where that personal development kind of hits the head, you know, for you and you're continuing to see that growth. And so like how old is your child now?
She's 17 months almost.
17
yeah,
months.
so like just almost a year and a half.
Yeah. And so she's gone through, you know, she's walking and all these different milestones now. And so like, yeah, so I just want to know a little bit more like about that journey through those first 17 months of her life. And what that's kind of been like for you.
You know, it's interesting because for so long, my personal development, you know, sorry if that phrase has lost all meaning now because I've said it so many times. But my growth when I was coaching before I became a parent was so focused on how to serve other people. It was very outwardly focused, and that's not a bad thing. It's what I needed at the time. And then just being a parent took it to a whole new level of recognizing where all the areas I realized, especially becoming a parent during COVID. Lucy was 6 months when everything closed down. And I was struggling a little bit because every parent kind of goes through this, like you have this whole life that you've lived and commitments that you've had. And at least I think every parent goes through this. Maybe we just don't all talk about it, but you're like, my life has been like expanded and enhanced. Like this huge gift has been added, but then that gift cost me something. And it was the normalcy of my autonomy, my being able to do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it, without, you know, consideration that there's another person that depends on me for everything. And so, I was right in the middle of like kind of discovering that, starting to try to find ways to like get back to my normal, like just engaging, getting out a little more, engaging with friends, maybe going to a mom's Bible study or something like that. I was just so enveloped with taking care of Lucy all the time. I was right in the middle of kind of starting to discover like I need to be pouring back into myself a little bit when everything stopped. Time stopped and kept going all at the same time. And so that was really challenging because in that time, you know, I did end up just talking with my healthcare provider and getting diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety. But I will be honest, like, I don't think that COVID caused it. I think it just revealed it. Like, I just didn't have, you know, the coping mechanisms, you know, that I had before. And so personal development, since I've become a parent right now, has been learning that, like, if I'm going to be a good parent And Lucy's really going to learn everything, most things she knows, especially for the first few years of her life, from me. And I'm modeling not taking care of myself. I'm modeling like not doing things for my own, just for my own enjoyment to fill up my cup. I'm not modeling like getting enough sleep. I'm just modeling striving and giving and doing things that don't really serve me just because somebody else, wants me to. Um, that was really like, that was where the rubber met the road for me with those things that I had been working on for a really long time.
Yeah.
People pleasing was a huge theme, especially when you start running your own business. If you deal with that, you'll see it come up. But parenting has been the thing. I didn't expect it. Parenting has been the thing that has like really caused refinement in that area. So I know that was kind of a lot. I don't know if all that made sense, but
No, it did. Yeah, yeah. So, so before COVID, like you're taking care of Lucy like 24/7 basically.
Yeah.
And then you start to get your feet like on the ground, start to get back into some things that you were enjoying before she was here, and then boom, COVID happens, and then that reveals your postpartum depression, and then that leads to that that again hitting a little bit more of a bottom and realizing, okay, I've been working on this stuff for so long, and it's like slipping through my fingers right now. I need to like grab a hold of this again, and make be a model for for my child,
right.
And so like in the meantime, have you been able to? How have you been doing that? Like,
yeah, it's taken a lot of mentorship. There have been lots of different ways. I think when somebody, especially if there's anyone listening to this dealing with postpartum or depression and anxiety, different seasons of my life, different strategies have served me the best. Mm-hmm. So, right now, like I'm seeing a life coach that really specializes. Like I said, it's so important to have people speaking into you. I'm seeing a life coach that specializes in helping people heal their mindsets and like operate in more freedom. And I'm taking medication, and it's, so important. And then there's been other seasons of life where the traditional counseling model by a certified therapist and, no medication or certain things have been, have served me better. This isn't my first time, seeking out counseling or therapy or anything like that. So that's been something that I've been doing for most of my 20s. But learning that, like, if I don't get prioritized in some way, then everything that needs to flow out of me that I'm passionate about in the world, it's just not going to be there. You literally can't pour from an empty cup. It's so, I just used to look at that quote and be like, whatever. But it really is so true. And it looks differently finding ways to do that when you are a stay-at-home parent like I am, but it's really vital. Because it really affects everything when that's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you sought like help, and like you realize like, hey, I can't do this completely on my own, and like even before this, you were mentioning like the importance of a mentor and in your development, and and so like even at this moment too, you realize like, yes, I've learned all these things, but like I can't handle this on my own, and the best way forward is seeking out help, and that's been pretty huge for you, I imagine, and just reiterated the importance of of seeking a mentor, seeking somebody who can help and help you continue along this journey. And do you have anything to say about that? Or
I've never done something. I've never succeeded at something that I've never done. Tried something new and succeeded at it without the help of somebody else. So it's just, that's so necessary. It's something that I don't know if it's our culture or I don't know, but asking for help is just such an uncommon thing.
Yeah.
I think so many people right now are like, well, I'm just going to figure it out for myself. And
Yeah.
I have never once figured it out for myself
Yeah.
and been successful at it. I know that you have
Yeah.
played that role for me in my fitness. I didn't know anything about lifting weights, getting really strong. When you started working with me as a trainer, when I was,
Yeah.
working for you, and
Yeah.
I've just I've never tried something new and been successful at it without the help of somebody else that knew that they were what they were doing.
Yeah, I
So,
think even with like Google at our fingertips, right? We have all
right,
this information like
right.
right in front of us, and we can like find the answer pretty much to
Mm-hmm.
anything. But I think there's something to be said about having someone else walk alongside you. That relationship, like it's more
Mm-hmm.
than just not head knowledge. Like there's
Yeah,
that relationship is just as powerful in your
it's
journey, in your
true.
walk, and I just I love what you're saying, and like the importance of finding somebody like that, or you
Yeah.
know
And
um
something else about that is that, in my experience, a good indicator of how successful you will be in your growth and personal development journey is when you find out how coachable you really are. And
yeah,
you can't do that without inviting someone in. And I've had times where I've not been very coachable. And so that's why I say that,
I
because,
think we all have, yeah.
yeah. And, learning to look at that too, if my mentors have
Hmm.
taught me a lot, um, the mentors that I've had, but also like, if you're dealing with a period, or, you're in that time where you're like, oh, I'm not very good at this and I'm not very good at this. And just learning to look at those things objectively. Something my mentors have taught me is to say, okay, let's look at this thing that you're not enjoying about yourself or your habits or
Hmm.
whatever, and say, that's interesting. I wonder if I can find out more about that. I wonder if I can find out more about why I'm doing this. Or really, that's so interesting. I wonder what led to that. And treat it as just some facts that we're going to look at. We're just going to observe it. We're not going to attach any judgment to it. We're not going to make it mean anything about who I am as a person or my potential or anything. I talked about really needing to break free of that fixed mindset, and this was part of
Hmm.
it. And so, for the people that are like, oh, yikes, she just said, you need to ask for help, and I stink at asking for help. Let's just get curious about that. Like, oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I wonder what it is about asking for help that's challenging for me. And I wonder if there's what's one thing I can do to maybe take a step in that direction of being willing to ask for help from somebody.
Hmm.
Those mindsets will really, they'll get you. And so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thankful
But
for
yeah, I
this.
think yeah, I think a big part of it, and I think it's something that you've exemplified, over and over in your story, is just humility, and just
Mm,
like, saying, just saying like, I can't do this on my own. Like, there's other people that, know more than me that can help me in ways that I'm not even thinking about.
mm,
And just setting aside like self, for a minute, being humble, and then in reaching out. And I think, with all the information that's out there and that we have access to, we can learn
yeah,
things instantly. And so we think that we can just figure everything out ourselves.
right.
And I think it takes a good amount of humility to kind of set that feeling aside for a second, and ask for help. And I think, over the course of your story, that's repeated itself, multiple times, and
Mm,
just your continual drive to become, better, and to improve, for others, and for, Lucy, your daughter, and for yourself, like that requires humility. And so, yeah, I really
wow.
appreciate
Thank
you
you.
sharing that. Yeah, Leah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so again, just thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, of
I think
course.
it's like been super powerful, and I think a lot of people will, can relate in a lot of ways, and just loved what you shared today. And so to close, I just wanted to give you a minute if you wanted to say anything else, before we close.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah.
And I think, for me, with this conversation and something that I'll just share one last thing where I'm developing, just because I think that it's just such a prevalent like message in our world right now, is that learning in the journey of personal development and in the journey of anywhere you're trying to grow, not to expect perfection from yourself or from other people, and to learn that like everything we're going through, everything that like I'm going through, the way I'm responding to it, we all have, like the theme of your podcast, we all have this story that we've lived so far. And for many of us, actually for all of us, it even really goes past like my own life, because my story also has to do with my mom's story and my dad's story and their parents. Like we all live in this like huge story. And to recognize that when you are in the trenches of your own personal development, having compassion for yourself, to realize like, okay, there's a whole story going on here. My mistake that I made in trying to accomplish this goal, like, can I just let that be a mistake without it? I think I alluded to this already, without it saying anything about me or my potential or my value. Can I just recognize that I've got a whole story going on here, like that this moment fits into, and not make it like, it doesn't have to be, it can just be a piece of the puzzle. And the way I'm reacting and the mistake that I made, like, have compassion for myself, because I've lived a whole life and had a whole story and had hurts and wounds and things that are impacting this moment. And I think that's important to have for other people too. Whether it's someone that you disagree with on Facebook right now, or, people have lived.
This is timely.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you're talking to a real person on the other side of that screen, and, you're interacting with a real person with real hurts, real wounds, real like reasons that they're passionate about the things that they're passionate about. I've often found that our passions usually come out of areas where we've been hurt. A person that has recently coached me called it a hell no, not on my watch. Like, it's that thing that rises up out of you because of what you've been through, that you say like, I'm actually going to make sure that the world is a place where this happens less often because of what has happened to me. And knowing, like, so just having compassion for yourself and, trying to have some compassion for other people. I have found that this is kind of like a huge tangent. It could be a whole nother topic, but
this is great.
I've found that when when I'm encountering someone that I'm like, what in the world? I don't relate. Like, we disagree. We are not vibing, the best thing that I've learned to ask is like, could you tell me more about that? Like, could you tell me more about it? Really kind of like what you're doing, Michael. It's really amazing. Like, can you tell me more about where did that start for you? And just like actually giving someone a listening ear to share who they are. And I think, we'll often find, I've had friends that we disagree politically, but we took some time to be like, tell me more about that. Tell me more about why this is important to you. And we actually found that we agree on a lot. We just kind of like to see it worked out in the public sector a little differently. Like, our ideas for how we would address what we're concerned about are just different, but we actually care about all the same things. Yeah. And it's amazing how when you can take the time to recognize, like, this person this thing that I'm experiencing with this person is only a small piece of who they are and their story and everything that they've lived. Let me actually like open up some space and like invite them to share safely who they are without any judgment. So that I did not intend to say all of that, but I just
no, that was incredible. That was pure gold. I appreciate you. You sharing that. And I love, you're talking about compassion for yourself, compassion for the people. You don't know what they've been through, and just being able to like just listen to them and what they're trying to say without just like reacting, you know?
Yeah.
I think that, you know, it's been said by a lot of people, and I think is really true, is that we listen, or that when we have conversations, most of the time we're listening to respond rather than listening to listen to what they're actually saying.
Right.
And I think that's one way to do what you're talking about, is like when you have a conversation with maybe somebody you don't, you know, necessarily get along with or agree with on something, like just listen to their perspective, because they've been through things, like you're saying, that is unique to them, and it has, you know, caused them to maybe think the way that they think. And maybe if you actually listen to what they're saying, that you'll actually find out, like you and your friend, that you might actually agree on a lot of things, or you can start to at least understand their perspective and why they think that way.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is huge, you know, to having compassion for other people. And so, yeah, I love that, Leah. And so, yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, this was an amazing podcast. I had so much fun. Yeah, I love this, and I could talk, you know, personal development all day.
Yeah. Right.
But, yeah. So thanks again for sharing. And before we close, I do want to just quickly, you know, pray for you before we close. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, yeah. So, Lord, we just thank you for today, and thank you for the conversation that you've, you know, led to happen here, and for Leah and who you've created her to be. Thank you for her humility, for her drive to be better, to become more like you, and to pour into other people's lives, Lord. And we just thank you for the gifts that you've given her, and we just pray blessings over her and her family. We love you. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So thanks again, Leah. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
Yep. All right.